There was a moment of reflection before Saturday's games as our teams took to the field to pay their respects to the late, great Doddy Weir, who passed away the week before after a fight with motor neuron disease. Our thoughts are with his family and friends at this time. Hello and welcome back to the Tennent's Men's Premiership and National League highlights. We'll be looking at round 12 later in the Tennent's Men's National 1, but first we're looking at round 13 in the Tennent's Men's Premiership and to Millennium Park, where Curry Chieftains were looking to keep pace on Hawick at the top of the table and also solidify second spot, which would give them the last home playoff. Their challenge, however, wasn't going to get any easier as they took on a rejuvenated Heriot's Blues at Millennium Park, who were looking to extend the gap between them and bottom place Musselburgh at the foot of the table. Your commentary from this one comes from Andrew Peartree.
Heriots have started the season poorly, but they started this game by going ahead after 5 minutes, Graham Wilson nudging over a penalty. They crossed the white line first too. Paul Christie picked out Noah Henry with a perfectly weighted kick, and the winger finished nicely in the corner. But the Chieftains are where they are because they know how to respond. They did so through a thundering Cairn Ramsey initially, before the ball was fed to Ryan Southern, who plunged over. And a beautifully executed line-out move would have them ahead. Kyle Steele received, popping back to Ryan Stewart, who darted down the touchline to score. Heriot replied with a try of their own, showing they too could move it nicely through the hands, with a score that was finished off by Ian Kay. And that was it for the first half, but there was far more to come in the second, particularly from the hosts. Within a minute of the restart, Greg Canny hurtled down the left flank before offloading to Ian Sim, who dotted down for an unconverted score. And the Chieftains grew their lead to 7 points when Adam Hall booted over a penalty. The bonus point try was in sight, and what a sight it was to behold. There are few better things in rugby than a prop on the rampage, and Cairn Ramsey truly crashed through to get the fourth score. It looked like Heriots had spurned their next chance when, following an excellent backline move, the ball bounced out wide. Thankfully, Ian Kay was able to gather and send Noah Henry in for his second score. Another excellent move followed, as did another try. This time the league's top scorer Craig Robertson was the grateful recipient, and suddenly there was just 2 points in it. Curry surrendered a late lead in their last game, but they wouldn't make the same mistake this time. Adam Hall was the man with the Chieftains' fifth. And they kept their foot on the gas to get a sixth try. A long looping pass found Cammy Meagher, and the substitute just about gathered to score. The Blues weren't quite done though. Once again it was a superb flowing backline move that saw Ian Kay free Ross Thompson out wide, and the sub had just enough pace to bounce over the line for the final try of the day.
Well, that loss for Heriot's Blues meant that Musselburgh had the chance to close the gap between them and the Golden Acres side as they looked to keep their place in the Premiership for next season. However, their challenge as well wasn't going to be any easier as they took on Selkirk at Philip Paul, who themselves were looking to extend the gap between them and Glasgow Hawks in the fight for the last playoff spot. Andrew Pearchy once again commentates on the game at Philip Paul.
The first 20 minutes went pretty much according to script. Selkirk opened the scoring after only 2 minutes when flowing hands put fullback Callum Anderson in for a try. And the second was quick to follow. This time it was down to the hard work of the forward pack, with Bruce Riddell scoring. Aaron McComb added a penalty, and the hosts had a 15-0 lead. Once Musselburgh finally got their hands on the ball, Craig Owenson was able to carry over at the back of a rolling maul, and Musselburgh had thrown their first punch. The visitors now had some wind in their sails and announced their entrance into the contest with a second score, this time on the other side, as winger James Ferguson sprinted in from the 22 after a floated pass from out-half Paul Cunningham. Now it really was game on at 15-14. Down to 14 men, Borough still managed to score on the cusp of half-time. Second row Michael Badenhorst showed blistering pace to fly down the flank, cruelly tackled metres from the line. Undeterred, the visitors crashed and eventually broke through, with Neil McNairn scoring. Musselburgh began the second half like Selkirk started the first, bagging the bonus point via Finn Durage 2 minutes after the break, following a poor clearance from Selkirk. The hosts were now chasing the game at 26-15 down, and a penalty from Owenson helped Borough sneak further ahead on the scoreboard, leaving Selkirk needing to score twice just to draw level. The hosts got back into the fight, courtesy of Bruce Riddell's second score of the afternoon from a driving maul 5 yards out, but Borough still had a 9-point cushion heading into the closing stages. And in the end, Owenson's superb penalty from the 10-metre line edged Borough 12 points clear, giving them only their second win of the season.
A pretty brilliant win there for Musselburgh. We're now going to take a look at the game at Mansfield Park, where Embrackes will be feeling joyous after their win over Curry Chieftains, winning with the last kick of the game to win by just a point. However, they were taking on Hawick, who themselves were looking to keep the unbeaten streak going and keep their place at the top of the table. The hosts would open the scoring after capitalising on an overthrow in Aki's line-out. Fraser Rennick ran the line before Gareth Welsh went over. Once again, it was the forwards that would be at play, as they went over for a penalty try moments later. And once more it was all about forward power, as they managed to put Accies into reverse gear with a 5-metre scrum, and Jay Linton went over for their third try. With 2 conversions by Kirkford, it was 19-0 to the hosts at the break. And into the second half, it would be the backs that would get the bonus point try, when Kyle Brunton found Ronan McKean out on the wing in space to go over. Helpless Accies could not find any points to get on the score sheet, and Gareth Welsh continued to put more misery on the visitors when he got his second try of the game. It was back to the forwards as they got another try in the second half. This time it was Callum Rennick who went over.
He disconnected, never reconnected.
And they finished off the game instead when Ethan Riley found Hector Patterson, who raced through. He would then find a basketball-style pass to Brunton, who in return managed to get the pass off to Andrew Mitchell, who went in for their final try of the day and leaving Accies without a point. A pretty dominant win there for Hawick. Up the road, Glasgow Hawks were looking to close the gap on Selkirk after their loss to Musselburgh, and they were taking on another border side in Jed Forest, who themselves were looking to get away from the bottom of the table. It took the hosts 20 minutes to get the first score of the game. Ryan Sweeney followed up his Glasgow double with a score from the back of a line-out maul. Jed would answer back with a try of their own when Callum Young managed to find the gap to go over. Quick thinking from Hawks scrum half Eric Davey meant they could go through for their second after they took a quick tap penalty and Mike Durner went over to finish the job. And much like their last try, Jed immediately answered back. This time it was Gregor Young who managed to find the gap and cut through some lacklustre Hawks defending to go over and leave the score 12-all at half-time. The hosts started the second half a lot quicker than they did the first, with Ross Starrett going over to give the hosts a lead shortly after the restart.
Jed, back foot! Jed, back foot!
And for the first time in the game, they got 2 tries back to back, with Mike Downer going over his second try just under the posts.
Missed it. Missed it. Onside, fellas.
And they brilliantly went in for their third, with Ross Darrett getting his second try of the game thanks to the offload from Gavin Cruikshanks. But Jed were not finished. Mike Fotheringham went under the post to give the visitors some sort of hope. Hawk tried to extend their lead, and they did through an Andy McLean penalty just shy of 40 metres, leaving the score at 32-19, with surely no hope of a Jed comeback, right? There's been some close scores for Jed Forest before this season, and with Mason Cullen going over for his first try of the game and Finlay Scott scoring the conversion, it meant that just one more converted try would see Jed walk away with the victory. And they managed to find that all-important try moments later when scrum half Gary Munro went over, meaning it was just a conversion from Finlay Scott to win the game.
Yeah, well done, 5.
And in unbelievable circumstances, he managed to convert the penalty, which meant that Jed walked away from Belgrade with the victory. A huge win there for Jed Forest. Well, in our last game down the A77, champions Mar were getting back to winning ways, now having won their third game in a row last week against Heriot's Blues, and they were looking to make it 4 in a row as they took on GHA at Fullerton. The champions were the first to get on the score sheet when Fraser Grant managed to find the gap and score. Andy managed to get his second try of the game shortly after, this time however going underneath the post to give Colin Sturgeon the easiest of conversions. On the 20-minute mark, though, GHA would get their first points of the game. Max McFarlane chased down a clearance kick from the Mar back line and went through to score. Gregor Drummond then scored this penalty to close the gap. But eventually down to 14 men, Mar made the numerical advantage count, with Cameron Young going over for the first try of the second half. And it wasn't long before Mar managed to get their bonus point try, with Ben Johnston crashing over for the fourth try. No conversion by Colin Sturgeon left the score at 26-8. But he soon added to his points tally for the season with this penalty. However, GHA were not done, and they managed to get their second try to try and salvage something from the game when Luke McCutcheon crashed over under the posts. But in the end, it would be Mar that would walk away with the victory, with Scott Bickerstaff getting the fifth try of the game, and a conversion by Colin Sturgeon left the score at 36-15. That then means now that Mar go above Glasgow Hawks in the table, albeit by just 2 points. Musselburgh at the bottom of the table now close the gap between them and Heriot's Blues to just 6 points, and they're only 8 points behind Jed Forest and GHA. Inverachis are now some way off the pace at the top of the table, 11 points behind second place Curry Chieftains, and they are only now as well 3 points behind Selkirk despite the loss. There are some big games at the bottom, middle and bottom of the table as Edinburgh's host Selkirk in a 3rd versus 4th place battle at Raeburn Place. Mar also take on Glasgow Hawks as Hawks will look to claim back 5th place, while Musselburgh will look to close the gap between them and 8th place as they take on Jed Forest. Elsewhere, Hawick travel to Goldenacre to take on Heriot's Blues and GHA host Curry Chieftains. The Tennent's men's national won now, and one team in form at the start of the season were Gala. However, with losses to Kelso, Ayr and Melrose, they now find themselves in 4th place and some place off promotion. They were looking to get back to winning ways as they were looking at a team at the other end of the table looking to survive the fight from relegation as they took on Watsonians at Mireside. Gala managed to start the first half stronger, and they managed to find the gap through the Watsonians' defence to score first. But Watsonians then managed to find the gap through for their first try as Stu Allison went over unopposed. With Gallagher's try unconverted and Watsonians' try converted, it was 7-5, and they managed to extend their lead when Matt Pritchard got his first try of the game. And the lead was extended through a Ben Harbour penalty as their fight for survival remained on. Gallagher looked out of the game. And surprisingly, Matt Pritchard went through for his second try of the game. But Gallagher were not out though, however, and they went through for their second try of the game. However, it was unconverted to leave the score at 24-10. But before the half-time whistle blew, Ben Harbour managed to get another penalty to make the score 27-10 going into the interval. And two more penalties at the start of the second half continued to extend that lead as they looked to break away from Gallagher. And the bonus point was secured later as they got their fourth try of the game as the lights turned on and Gallagher looked to be in the dark. Ross Stanley continued to add to Gallagher's woes as he went through for Watsonians' fifth try of the game. And before anyone could even respond, Watsonians went through for their sixth try of the game. A fantastic win for Watsonians as they looked to continue their fight away from the relegation zone, but leaving Gallagher's promotion chances out of reach. In the other games in Tennent's Men's National 1, it was another win for Biggar as they came away from Dundee Rugby with 21 points to 16. Melrose continued their strong promotion chances with a 47-13 win over Stirling County at the Greenyards. Stuart's Melville survival chances continued to hang in the balance as they lost to GHK 24 points to 18, however coming away with a losing bonus point. Ayr continued to be hot on Kelso's trails as they beat Highland 18 points to 14. But Kelso proved to be the strongest team in the league as they won 47-10 over Aberdeen Grammar at Rubislaw.
Short. Try.
And so that leaves the table looking like this. Kelso are still top of the table. However, with Ayr not being able to get more bonus points, Melrose now go above them in the table. At the bottom of the table, Watsonians' win means that they are now only 6 points behind GHK, and Stewart's Melville are now some pace off the foot of the table. The challenge doesn't get any easier for Stewart's Melville as they take on Melrose at Inverleith. Elsewhere, it's also a Highland derby to look forward to as Highland take on Aberdeen Grammar, while Gala will look to get back to winning ways as they take on third place Ayr at Netherdale. Also, Biggar take on GHK, Kelso host Dundee Rugby, and Stirling County will host Watsonians. There are some big results to look at in Tennent's men's national too, as Lasswade left it late to get a win at Cartha. Elsewhere, Dumfries Saints continue to pile on the pressure on Boroughmuir as they put 51 points past them. Hamilton Bulls also came close against Peebles but could not find that all-important victory. And it was a huge game at Pennypit, but Preston Lodge fell 4 points short against Glasgow Accies in a 76-point game. That does leave Glasgow Accies still at the top of the table. However, they are only 2 points ahead of Falkirk, who themselves are only 2 points ahead of Newton Stewart and Peebles. Preston Lodge now find themselves some way off the promotion places. It is incredible in the middle of the table as we have 4 teams on 26 points, with the teams from 9th and below going down next season. The fight for survival and promotion heats up next week as Berwick take on Hamilton Bulls while Boroughmuir host Preston Lodge. Cartha Queen's Park are also at home to Peebles while Dumfries Saints host Falkirk. Kirkcaldy take on Lasswade, and in the big clash at the top of the table, Newton Stewart will look to close the gap on Glasgow Accies. The big clash at the top of the table was between second place West of Scotland and first place Gordonians, with the Aberdeenshire side coming away with the victory by just 2 points. Orkney managed to get back to winning ways as they put 50 past Perthshire, while Murrayfield Wanderers continued to pile on the misery on Royal High as they won 26-19. So the gap between West of Scotland and Gordonians at the table is now extended to 6 points. Allen Glen's victory means that they are now joined with a Howe Fife in the middle of the table and only 1 point behind third place Hillhead Jordan Hill. West of Scotland will hope that gap can be closed as they take on Perthshire this week, while Gordonians travel to Howe Fife. Elsewhere, Hillhead Jordan Hill are away to Murrayfield Wanderers, Royal High make the trip up to play Orkney, Greenock Wanderers host Whitecraigs, and Allen Glens take on Strathmore.
And so that is it for another weekend of Tennent's men's Premiership and National League action. Some huge games going into the festive period as teams are still looking for the fight for the title and the fight from relegation. Join us next week to find out who the winners will be from the next round, and we look forward to seeing you then.